Hello, children. I welcome you all to this English class. In this session, we are going to learn from Unit 6 poem. The title is The Aloe Crown from Richard II, and it was written by William Shakespeare. Before we enter into the poem, we'll see about the author. William Shakespeare was born in the year of 1564 and died in the year of 1616. He was an English poet and playwright, is widely regarded as the greatest writer in English language and the world's preeminent dramatist. He was born and brought up in Stratford upon Avon, Warwickshire. He wrote about 39 plays, 154 sonnets, two long narrative poems, and a few other verses. He was often called England's national poet and nicknamed the Bard of Avon. The first publishing of Shakespeare's works is The First Folio. Playwright Ben Jonson wrote a preface to this book, including the quote is not of an age but for all time. His plays have been translated into every major living language and are constantly studied and performed throughout the world. First, we'll see few things about the poem. This poem is an extract from William Shakespeare's historic play King Richard II. The play is based on the true events that occurred towards the end of the 14th century. Richard II was crowned as the King of England in 1377 when he was 10 years old. In 1399, he was deposed by his cousin Henry of Bolingbroke, who crowned himself as King Henry IV. Richard II was ousted from his royal position and sent to prison, where he died in captivity. In his play, Shakespeare captures this prominent episode of English history entirely a free-flowing verse so lyrically that he proves once again his stature as an uncrowned king of English literature. This monologue is famously known as the Aloe Crown speech in theatrical circles. In it, King Richard ponders the might of death that overshadows everything else, including the seemingly invulnerable power of kings, and renders them as human as any commoner at a moment's notice. When Richard comes face to face with the bleak reality of his crumbling world and his imminent fate, he succumbs to despair momentarily. It is then that he speaks the following verse. Let's get into the poem. Children, listen carefully. Meanwhile, I'll ask you questions. The Aloe Crown, William Shakespeare. Let's talk of graves, of worms and epitaphs. Make dust or paper, and with rainy eyes, write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills, and yet no so, for what can we bequeath save our deposed bodies to the ground? Here, the situation is hopeless, therefore, he will not speak of comforts. He wants to talk about graves, worms, and about the inscriptions on tombstones in memory of the dead. He wants to make the dust his paper and use his tears and write a message of sorrow on the earth. He requests his men to choose their executors and talk of their wills. And yet, what can they pass on to their next generation other than leaving their rotting bodies to the ground? Okay, why does the king suggest that it is now time for his will executed? Yes, the king talks about graves and death as he is deposed by Henry of Bolingbroke, right? So the king suggests that it is the right time to call the executors to execute his will, right? Yes. Our land, our lives, and all are Bolingbroke's, and nothing can we call our own but death. And that small model of the barren earth, which serves as paste and cover to our bones. Here, their lands and their lives now belong to Bolingbroke, and they can call nothing their own except for their death and that little patch of earth that will cover their buried bodies. Okay, who is Bolingbroke? Is he a friend or foe? Yes, Bolingbroke is the cousin of King Richard II. So, he is an enemy of King Richard. Am I right? Yes. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. How some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed. Here, for God's sake, he says to sit on the ground and tell sad stories of the dead kings, how some were overthrown and some killed in the war. Some were haunted by the ghost of the kings they had overthrown. Still others were poisoned by their wives, while others were killed in their deep sleep. Okay, why are the stories sad? Yes, the stories are sad because they disclosed the different ways of death of defeated kings, right? Yes. All murdered, for within the hallowed crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court, and there the antique sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene to monetize, be feared and killed with looks. However, all of them were murdered. There is always death around kings, and there is no way to escape it. Death laughs at the king's reign and mocks his great ceremonies, allowing him to live a little while and play the monarch. Okay, who mocks at the king's state and pomp? Yes, death, which is personified as the antique, mocks at the king's state and pomp, right? Yes. Infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if this flesh which walls about our life were brass impregnable and humoured thus, comes at the last and with a little pin bores through his castle wall and farewell king. Cover your heads and mock not flesh and blood, with solemn reverence throw away respect. Here it fills him with vain pride, as if the king's body is immortal. At the end, death comes and within little effort kills the body and bids goodbye to the king. He entreats his followers not to mock his merry flesh and blood by exhibiting dignified respect towards himself. Okay, who bores through his castle wall? Yes, death bores through his castle wall, right? Okay, what does it bid the king? Yes, it bids goodbye to the king. Tradition, form, and ceremonious duty, for you have but mistook me all this while. I live with bread like you, feel want, taste grief, need friends, subjected thus. How can you say to me, I am a king? Here, he asked them to cast out all respect and ceremonious duty towards his royal state. They had mistaken him all the while. He adds that he too needs bread to live, feels want, tastes grief, and needs friends. He concludes his speech rhetorically, questioning them how could they call him a king while he was compelled to recognize human mortality. Okay, what are the subjects his followers have to throw away according to King Richard? Yes, the king's followers should throw away respect, tradition, form, and ceremonious duty towards his royal state, right? Yes. Okay, what do you mean by the word ceremonious? Yes, you're absolutely correct. Ceremonious means very formal and serious. Now we'll see few hard words and its meaning from the poem. Epitaph. Short stories of writing inscribed on tombstone in memory of the dead. Executors. Persons who put someone's terms of will into effect. Bequeath. Pass on something to the next generation by means of a will. Deposed. Removed from office or power. Slain. Killed. Antic. Someone who draws attention through silly or funny acts. Here, a court gesture. Scoffing. Expressing mockery. Grinning. Smiling wildly. Monarchize. Rule or carry out the duties and functions of a ruler. Impregnable. Impossible to pass through. Ceremonious. Being very formal. Let's see few key points from the poem. The poem is an extract from the play Richard II. The king was deposed by his cousin. He was sent to prison and died in captivity. He wanted to talk of graves, epitaphs, and death. Death is portrayed as a court gesture. Death is very powerful. He did not want to be called as king since he was only a human. Okay, children, up to this, the poem gets over. Hope you understood. Please go through the poem in your textbook for better understanding. Thank you.